Most people probably, when they think of this issue, probably think first of how school vouchers would affect children. Lisa, let's say I'm one of your neighbors. I have kids who are in the public schools. What would you tell me about voting for or against school vouchers, as far as it would affect my kids?
Sure. Well, you know that it's difficult to fund education in Utah because we do have so many children. And anybody who has children in public schools know that we do a really good job with the resources that we have. But as we have more and more children coming into the schools, it gets more and more difficult to do. So one of the concerns that we have as Utahns for Public Schools with the voucher bill is that it takes hundreds of millions of dollars as the program's phased in. We feel that that money would be better invested in our public schools where we could lower the class size, recruit teachers and retain teachers, so we have those best teachers staying there, not just leaving because they need to be able to support their family better. Okay.
Doug, what would you say? I come to you, say, hey, I've got kids in the public school. Should I vote for vouchers or not?
I think it's good because we've already found a point of agreement with Lisa. We recognize as well that Utah schools are very challenged because of the number of kids we have in schools. We have class sizes that are too large. We spend too little per pupil. And essentially, one of the core purposes of the legislature and the governor passing the voucher bill was to help that funding challenge. Essentially, the voucher allows a parent. Today we fund, this year in public schools, we'll spend $7,500 for every kid in public school. Essentially the voucher says, is there any parent willing to, instead of getting $7,500, take $2,000, raise your hand, take a voucher, leave the public school system, leaving $5,500 without the student in public schools. So it increases per pupil funding and lowers class sizes. I think that's a big deal for public schools and one of the key challenges that we're facing here. And the legislature was very thoughtful in designing legislation that would address those key concerns that public schools have in Utah.
Okay. Lisa, I would say your group feels that this funding mechanism just doesn't work out quite right.
Well, sure, it'd be nice if it were that simple, but funding a program as complex as this is not that simple. One thing we need to remember that is, as the program is phased in over 13 years, we pay for more and more students who would have gone to private schools anyway. Those are students we wouldn't pay anything for under the current system. So those are not a savings, those are a cost. And the best resource that voters have on this bit of information, this complicated fiscal thing, is the voter information pamphlet, where the legislative fiscal analyst has actually included cost estimates and the savings estimates, which Doug has talked about here. And you can look in that pamphlet and see in the first year and the 13th year what the savings would be and what the costs would be. And I don't know if you can zoom in on this, but those costs over 13 years, that's this red line here, they escalate tremendously, whereas the savings kind of level out. And this is the full cost of the program. You can't just look at the first year where it looks pretty good. Like Doug said, it sounds like a lot of money, but this cost is what we really need to look at long term.
Well, I'm going to get back to the total costs of the program later on, and we'll address it in a little more detail. But Doug, I know some people have said, and I think we on the editorial page have said, hey, if overcrowding is a problem, this is a mechanism to encourage some students to leave the public schools and get an alternative and relieve overcrowding.
Right. No, and that is exactly the case. Why not engage the private sector in an opportunity here to educate kids and do it at a dramatically lower cost? So they're willing to do it for $2,000, the average voucher amount. God, let's take them and reduce that overcrowding, let the private sector step in and do it, and at the same time doing the other big objective of public schools, and that is getting parents involved. And so we get parents involved actively in engaging with their kids. We've got 160,000, overcrowding today is a problem, we've got 160,000 new kids coming at us. Every one of those that I can educate for $2,000 instead of $7,500 reduces the crowding in the school. It really is pretty simple.
Okay, well, we'll get back to the funding a little later.
Okay.